What is going on, Notre Dame football fans? Mike Singer, Tyler Horka, and Jack Soble live for this week's Notre Dame six-pack show. We have a lot to discuss. As the title suggests, these guys are going to grade the Notre Dame portal class. I'll give my grade as well. They'll talk about Indiana winning the title and kind of how that fits in from a Notre Dame perspective and more, of course, as we do every week. Take 6 Notre Dame topics and have 6 minutes to discuss each of them. Folks, please hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content. And this show is, of course, brought to you by Roback. So change the game with Roback, a proud partner of Blue and Gold. Get the best fit and best feel with their incredibly comfortable activewear, from polos and quarter zips to shorts and Delta performance pants. You will look good and feel good with Roback. Use the code BlueGold20. It's just one word, BlueGold20, for 20% off your first purchase at roback.com. If you tried using that code recently and it didn't work, I think I got it fixed. So use that code BlueGold20 for your first purchase, being 20% off. And it looks like they just got a bunch of new stuff. So BlueGold20 at roback.com. Boys, I trust that you're well, so we're going to dive into today's show. Let's see if I can't figure it all out. I'm a little rusty. There we go. Indiana winning the national title, guys. So let's kind of talk about the game last night, the college football playoff, how it ties into Notre Dame. Congrats to Pat Coogan for his national championship. Holden Stays and Pat Kuntz, former Notre Dame defensive lineman, now on stuff in Indiana. So congrats to those guys. But Jack, I'll throw it over to you, man. Where do you want to take this?
Yeah, I guess starting with Coogan, not only was he a player on the team, he was a massive player on that team. I don't know if you guys watched the Mendoza touchdown run closely, but the key matchup there was Coogan against Justin Scott, who obviously Notre Dame fans know very well from Notre Dame heavily recruiting him out of high school in Chicago. He was matched up with him for pretty much the whole time Mendoza was back there, and that's a QB draw. It takes a little bit to develop. Got locked on him, turned his shoulders to give Mendoza a lane, and then as Mendoza's running by, you can see like he's on his knees, he's holding on with everything he's got. He's giving his life to make that block. It just shows the kind of player Pat Coogan is. I'll share an anecdote from last year after the national championship. I got a chance to talk to him. Obviously, very thoughtful and gracious dude in the locker room. But he could barely speak. He just gave everything he possibly had for that. And he did it twice in a row in the national championship. So congrats to him.
Yeah, I didn't watch this game at all, man. I'm kidding. Because Notre Dame fans were all like, "Oh, we're gonna boycott this thing." Yeah. But I actually thought, for as low scoring of a football game as it was for a while there, both of those teams, in terms of who got in to the national champion or to the college football playoff field, those two teams deserve to be there as much as any of the two teams. And sometimes you'll get somebody in the end, and like we saw Georgia completely blow out TCU pretty recently. I thought Michigan overwhelmed Washington a couple of years ago. This was a pretty wide open game. Came down to a blocked punt. I mean, I don't think enough people are talking about how if that blocked punt touchdown didn't occur, maybe we're talking about a world in which Miami is the national champion. And I will say Notre Dame fans don't want to hear this, but watching Akeem Mesidor and Ruben Bain Jr. just completely dominate that game with Notre Dame's defensive end situation over the last couple of seasons, I don't think that they would have been able to do that to this Indiana team. And Fernando Mendoza was made mortal for a long time in this football game because he was rattled so much. Jack, your Heisman Trophy vote was validated in that run that you talked about, though. I thought that was an awesome moment. Indiana is validated for going 16-0. A lot of people thought that in this era, you're never going to see that. You look up and down. We're going to talk about the way too early top 25 here in a little bit. It's like 2 losses here, 3 losses there. Alabama even has 4 losses in the top 10, but Indiana is 16-0. So that was vindicated and validated. Mendoza, he earned his stripes in that game. So just like a pretty awesome night for college football. And again, I know Notre Dame fans don't want to hear that because they felt that the Irish could have been there had the Irish made the field. But if you did get over that and you did watch this national championship game, you were treated to a pretty special night for the sport.
A few takeaways kind of relating to Notre Dame. as it relates to Miami, I should say, because Notre Dame obviously plays Miami next year. Bain and Mesidor, guys can breathe a sigh of relief, are gone. Mesidor is like 25 years old. He's out of eligibility. And Ruben Bain will be probably a top 10, 15 pick in the NFL draft. They are fantastic. I think before the championship game, they had combined for like 40 total pressures in the playoff, which is in three playoff games between the two of them, which is insane. Malachi Tony is very much back, and I'm looking forward to that matchup with him and Leonard Moore. I think a big reason Notre Dame lost that game certainly wasn't the only reason. Bain Mesidor, Notre Dame's failure to penetrate Miami's offensive line were up there, but a big reason Notre Dame lost that game in week 1 was they didn't properly game plan for Malachi Tony. Because how could they properly game plan for Malachi Tony? He hadn't played a game of college football yet, and he was a 3-star recruit. And there was some, like, if you talk to the Miami beat writers over the summer, like, they knew Tony was going to be good, but I don't think anyone knew that he would be this good this quickly. So if Notre Dame played Miami later in the season and had a better chance to game plan for everything he can do, they would have had a better chance against him. And I think Leonard Moore will probably see a ton of him in the slot. Obviously, that's a while away, but in November, that's one of the probably most anticipated matchups of college football season.
Yeah, that's not just a Miami-related thing as it relates to Notre Dame and the way that they progressed throughout the season. You saw it against Texas A&M too, especially with Devonta Smith not being healthy in that game. The Irish didn't have their defensive back personnel completely figured out. And I agree with you, Jack. Like, if they did in that Miami game, then maybe it would have gone differently. But I'm glad you mentioned Tony, because I thought for a second there, like, if Miami did get the ball back, which it did, then maybe that guy just scores a crazy touchdown again, because he's that good of a player. And you saw the playmaking. I mean, Fletcher, his couple of touchdowns were really good. The play calling was really good at times in that game. And again, it goes back to this being a pretty good night for the sport, in my opinion, because I did think eventually you had a couple of teams that whoever would have won that game would have deserved to have been crowned national champion.
Another reason it was a great night for the sport, real quick, is that brands matter as little as they ever have in college football, and that is glorious.
Marcus Freeman was, of course, on College Gameday. I thought he was awesome. I mean, what'd you guys think about Freeman? He talked about, leave no doubt. He got Kirk Herbstreit to get up and shake his hand. Like, what were your guys' takeaways? I'll throw it over to Tyler first.
I thought he did excellent. I thought he nailed every single aspect of it. Like, the analysis is one thing, and you almost expect it because he is one of the, he's on the younger side and one of the best head coaches in college football right now. Like, he is, in terms of watching game tape, talking about game tape, that's what he does. That's what he gets paid the big bucks for. But it's another thing to articulate it to millions of people who are watching that. And, like, that's not part of it that he does all the time. He's in a meeting room with his players and coaches, and that's how he goes over tape. He was, bright lights, TV cameras in his face last night, and I thought he was doing a really good job with that. He shared a funny moment with Pat McAfee that had to do with fighting. I'll just leave it at that on that one. Like, if you know, it was kind of an inside joke type of thing there. He just knocked it out of the park. And this was to nobody's surprise, right? When he first became the head coach at Notre Dame 4 years ago now, everyone was like, oh my gosh, I think I actually like Notre Dame. And this is coming from people that never liked Notre Dame, never had a reason to like Notre Dame. He makes Notre Dame likable because he is a likable person. And you saw a lot of that likability on display on College Gameday.
I think our Eric Hansen wrote about just how good that was for recruiting implications and just getting Notre Dame's name on the map. I mean, recruits watching that game saw that, see how good Freeman is with everything he says. So you can check out that column on our website. As far as Freeman as an analyst, I agreed. I thought he was fantastic. Notre Dame fans, tired Marcus Freeman is going to go to the NFL. Wired Marcus Freeman is going to get any TV job he possibly wants whenever he wants it. So whenever he's ready to be done coaching, you can look forward to seeing him on your TV frequently, assuming that's what he wants to do after his coaching career. I thought, like, you could certainly tell he was new to it a couple times, kind of like a little bit like Tom Brady last year. I think Tom Brady's been a fantastic announcer in his second season, but there were times last year you could tell he was new to it. So kind of the same vibes. At his best, I thought Freeman was absolutely at his best when he was doing those breakdowns. He did 2 of them during the pregame, one on Fernando Mendoza and his ability to read coverages pre-snap and know where he's going with the ball before he gets it. I thought that was really good. And then when he broke down Pat Coogan, which I thought was also really good, and how Coogan's athleticism and strength affects what Indiana can do in the run game, which again you saw firsthand during the national championship because you saw Pat Coogan make that block on Justin Scott. So I thought Freeman was great. His game pick was also great because he picked Miami explicitly to avoid giving the Hurricanes bulletin board material for November 7th.
He thought that one out too. No one stoned unturned with Marcus Freeman, because if he did pick Indiana, well, one, he would have been right, but two, like he would have heard it for 8 months or 11 months. I guess that game's in November. It's not the beginning of the season. So smart call on his part there. Smart call just going on the show in general too. I know Notre Dame fans' reactions, like on our message board immediately when it was announced, I think it was Friday, that he was going to give ESPN his time of day and go on, their flagship pregame show. It was like, really, what are we doing here? This is from the Irish fans. And I thought it was like a no-brainer from the jump. You get College Gameday to say, hey, we want you on before the national championship. You say yes. Like, you're sitting next to Nick Saban and Pat McAfee, and, all eyes are on this one game. It's the only time that there's, outside of the first round of the playoff, I guess, when there's that standalone game. But this is the national championship, and you have a chance to kind of promote your program in a way, because there was a portion there where ESPN allowed him to do that. Nick Saban said, like, yeah, you guys would have been great if you were in this playoff. How did you deal with not being in this playoff? He handled that question excellently. Like Mike said, he got the handshake from Kirk Herbstreit. So it was almost like for the last 6 weeks, it's been so easy for outsiders to make fun of Notre Dame and like poke fun at Notre Dame. But with everything that Marcus Freeman said and the way that he handled his appearance on this show, I thought it was almost impossible. Like, you would have to gone out of your way to say, oh yeah, Marcus Freeman stinks and Notre Dame stinks for this reason. Like, he nailed this appearance.
Yep, good stuff there, boys. So I don't know how you guys are going to address this specifically, because like there have been so many way too early top 25s out there, and Notre Dame I've seen anywhere, whether it's like a poll from an On3 or a specific person, anywhere from like 2 to 12. So I think that speaks pretty highly about, what the pundits think about the Irish next season. So Jack, where do you want to take this one?
Yeah, I think just going over some of the way too early top 25s, we have the lowest one, which I thought was completely nonsensical. Fox Sports had him at number 12.
Sports that was just RJ Young, by the way, who is a
correct.
known Notre Dame hater, I would say, like pretty blatant about it, but continue.
Sports Illustrated had them at number 2. That was Brian Fisher, who's a good national writer. Poll of On3 writers had them at number 4. And ESPN, which everyone here is convinced hates Notre Dame, had them at number 3. I would say the most common, the most common ranking that they had was probably number 5. Average, when you discount RJ Young outlier, probably around 4.5 maybe. I would have them anywhere from like 2 to 5. I think this is a contender next year. I think when you read some of the descriptions, what they miss, like everyone knows CJ Carr's coming back. Everyone knows they're going to miss Jeremiah Love. What a lot of people miss is they're bringing back their top 8, potentially top 9 if Jason Onye can come back. He's still waiting on that waiver verdict. But their top 8 defensive players in terms of snap count in 2025. That is Leonard Moore, not in this order. Leonard Moore, Don Schuler, Tay Johnson, Christian Gray, Kingston Viliamasa, Drake Bowen, Jay Nosberry, who's the one? Boubacar Traore, and then Jason Onye if he can come back. That is extremely good defensive continuity, and you keep the same coordinator defensively. There is little reason this shouldn't be a top 5 defense. And by the way, that top 8 or 9 doesn't even include Bryce Young, Jalen Sneed. They brought in Francis Brew, who we'll talk about in a little bit. That's an established starter up front. It's just there's so much to like about this team going into next year that, like, I know some people have them at like 7 because Jeremiah Love's gone. I wouldn't have them any lower than 5.
Yeah, when you made made up that list, put out that list of the players that you just went through in terms of who's coming back on defense a few days ago, I just looked at it and like just to see the names all in one place there, I was like, wow, that's something. And then we'll talk about this like you said in a minute, but I think the defensive line, which we went into portal season thinking, oh man, this might be a huge issue with Brew and with Tion Gray. And if Jason Onye comes back, you're returning Boubacar Traore, like you mentioned, Bryce Young on the edges, Keon Keeley, like the potential there. Maybe if he finally gets up to that, the defensive line might be better than it was for Notre Dame last season. You're bringing back all your linebackers. The secondary is what it is with, a Thorpe Award, probably front runner, if you will, going into next season, and Leonard Moore. The two safeties, like that safety combination, Notre Dame's defense was so much better once it figured out Tay Johnson and Don Schuler. Those are the guys. Let's roll them out there almost every snap that we can. And then that's all before you get to the fact that I'm sold on Notre Dame knowing that it has a top 5 head coach in Marcus Freeman and it has a top 5 quarterback in CJ Carr. I don't think that's refutable. I think Marcus Freeman is a top 5 coach in the sport. Show me 5 that are better. We'll probably debate all day on that if you really think that. And then CJ Carr, show me 5 quarterbacks in the country who are better than CJ Carr going into 2026. And his pass catching weapons, Notre Dame addressed that in the portal. He's still got some guys coming back. I think the running game is going to be fine with the guys that Notre Dame has coming back there, like Aeneas Williams, Keedron Young, all those guys, special talent, special players. You recruit the position that way because you know that you're only going to have a guy like Jeremiah Love for 3 years and you're eventually going to have to replace him. Not to say that he's replaceable, but like with the guys that Notre Dame is going to try to do that with, they're in pretty good shape there. So just top to bottom, all positions accounted for. You're looking at, once again, a championship caliber roster, and you're looking at a team that doesn't have to play a team that played for the national championship in game 1 on the road, and a team that made the college football playoff in your very next game. So a lot that Notre Dame has going for it. And all of that to say, I think Notre Dame should be firmly inside the top 5 in these way too early top 25s. It's no question to me.
Just a couple of the other teams that are up there along with Notre Dame. You obviously have the Ohio States, the Georgias, the Texases, and I know people are going to be like, oh, why Texas? They were disappointing last year. Arch was very quietly awesome at the end of last season, and you had a really good transfer portal cycle at the skill positions with led by Cam Coleman. Some other teams, obviously Indiana is going to be up there, and I'm reading off the On3 poll. Indiana is going to be up there. You have to trust Kurt Zanetti at this point because, I mean, there's no reason. Like obviously they could regress with what they're not going to have next year, but there's no reason not to trust him at this point. Oregon also up there, and Oregon is a team I would consider for number 1 for a lot of the same reasons I would consider Notre Dame for number 1. You get Dante Moore back, and then your entire defensive line, and also a couple really good receivers, DeCoran Moore and Evan Stewart. So those are kind of the teams that are up there the most. You see Miami probably towards the back end of the top 10. And then BYU, BYU is going to be a quality opponent for Notre Dame if the projections are any indication, because they're in most of the top 15s I saw.
As we saw from this past season, the way too early top 25s really difficult to project. Heck, the preseason one, after you have spring ball and everything, is very difficult as well. Jack talking about Oregon made me think about Penn State and Clemson, which I thought were going to be title contending teams along with Texas this past season. But here we are. I doubted Indiana literally every single step of the way, except for this national championship game. And so we'll see what they do this upcoming season. They will be fascinating. All right, boys, what grade do you give Notre Dame's portal class? Just, from an F to an A plus. You can have, again, the minuses or the pluses there. Let's hear it. And then what's your rationale behind that? We'll go to Horka first.
I'm giving it a solid A. I've seen some people give it lower grades than that, and Jack might give it a lower grade than that here in a second, but I just find that if I were to give it an A minus or anything worse than that, I'd be really nitpicking, because when you assess these things, you got to look at, what did Notre Dame need? Well, it needed defensive tackles and wide receivers. It's got 2 of each of those in this class. I'm going to put Spencer Porat, the kicker, in this class, even though he's not in this class. Look, he played for a different program last year. transferred to Notre Dame somehow, some way, and he's going to play football for Notre Dame next year. So, like, you needed a kicker. You got a kicker. Keon Keeley coming back is awesome, not just for the nostalgia and the vibes of it all, but I think he has a really good potential, and it's a good fit because Notre Dame needed another guy who could eat up some snaps and maybe get to a point where, he's like a number one defensive end or like a 1B to Boubacar Traore's 1A. I think Boubacar is definitely the best defensive end Notre Dame has, but you're searching for that number 2 with Joshua Burnham leaving and Junior Tui Halamaka exhausting eligibility. So again, when you look at what you needed, what you got, it was a good marrying of those two things. But the one knock, I guess, and this is why it wasn't perfect in my eyes, doesn't deserve an A- or less than that, but it wasn't an A+ because the receivers that you did get, they come from Ohio State and they're 5-star guys, but what have they done at the college level? A whole lot of nothing yet. And that wasn't their fault because Jeremiah Smith and Carnell Tate are there, but they're going to have to prove it at Notre Dame. Tion Gray is going to have to prove it at Notre Dame. Keon Keeley's even going to have to prove it at Notre Dame. So that's why it's lacking the plus for me, but I wasn't going to go as far as to say it was a minus.
I also gave it an A, a flat A. I was kind of going back and forth between A and A-, but I think I'll tell you what sold me on the flat A, and then I'll nitpick because it's interesting because my nitpick is different from yours. So just here's why I have it as an A. The one position, and you can loop defensive end here after Burnham left, but the one position after the playoff snub that we all pointed to and were like, that's the one place Notre Dame absolutely has to add guys that sticks out like a sore thumb on the projected depth chart for next season is defensive tackle. And what I wrote in the Portal Needs article was they need one proven starter and one rotational guy who can potentially develop into a starter down the line. And they nailed both of those positions. I mean, they knocked them out of the park. Francis Brew is exactly what they needed in the starter. Tion Gray, I think the people who have said that Notre Dame doesn't really have anyone like him on their roster are correct. Just the space eater, 2-down run stopper who you can expect to play significant snaps right away, and he's got 3 years to develop into a real force up front. So I like that. I like that ad a lot. It gets an A because of what they did at their biggest position of need. I actually like what they did at wide receiver. That's not my nitpick. I know it was yours, but because they have a couple veteran guys in Jordan Faison and Jaden Greathouse that, like, you, assuming Greathouse is healthy, you know what you're going to get from those guys. I like swinging for upside with Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham, Ohio State guys, tons of athletic potential. You certainly see the vision there. Also, guys, Notre Dame recruited. I think it's important to point out that it's not just Notre Dame throwing money at former 5-star guys. These are guys that Notre Dame knows well. My nitpick is at defensive end, and it is a fantastic story. Keon Keeley coming back. I'm excited to get to know him a little bit once we talk to him at Notre Dame because Marcus Freeman is really convicted that he's a Notre Dame kid. But I would have liked a little more proven production there because you got Boubacar Traore on one end, and then you have a couple guys in Bryce Young and Keon Keeley who, while you really believe in their potential, they haven't done much at the college level. Bryce Young's obviously done more, but he was relegated to a situational pass rushing role towards the end of the season. So if one or both of those guys really hits next year, then you're talking about one of the best position groups on the roster. But that's a big if in my book right now.
Yeah, you almost need both of those guys to hit because I don't think people realize how consistent Joshua Burnham and Junior Tui Halamaka were and what they did.
Jordan
they were the opposite. They were the anti Bryce Young in the sense that you just said, like, Bryce Young, you can only bring him in on passing downs and, like, kind of unleash him in that way. Joshua Burnham, Junior Tui Halamaka, they were doing everything. They good run stoppers. Were they the best at getting at the quarterback? No, but you kind of knew, like, hey, if we put them on the field, they're not going to drastically mess this operation up to a point of, like, these guys being unplayable. They were playable all 3 downs if that's what they needed to do for Notre Dame. So that's a big miss. And then the one thing that I get back to with the wide receivers is my biggest worry is that, and I think I've said this before, maybe even on this show last week, but you have guys like Micah Gilbert and Cam Williams who have been around for a couple of years and just have not ascended to that, hey, they're going to get you 2, 3, 4 catches a game and be big-time guys for you. If you add Quincy Porter and Mylan Graham to that, then you're just kind of chugging along. It's like you add these guys because they better go produce right away for you. Where does that leave Gilbert and Williams? I'm not sure. So it almost muddies the waters of the Notre Dame wide receiver room in a way. But if they do come in and produce, then it's like, yo, okay, yeah, we were right and we're vindicated in this. And, those are the guys that we needed to get.
I gave it an A-, and I wrote in the article that you'll be able to find at Blue and Gold tomorrow morning that I was kind of teetering on a B+ and A-. But apparently I was a little too negative based on your guys' grades. And my reason was very similar to what Horka said at the top. Very, very talented. You meet all the needs. The only question is it's a lot of what you can become versus what you like. There's just one guy of the 8 who has 1 year of eligibility. It's not a bad thing. It's just, this 26 season has national championship aspirations. So I'm not again, it's a nitpick. It's an incredible class. But I'm just thinking A+ would be something that Texas Tech has put together or something like that. But now Tech and Notre Dame are doing different things in the portal. So it's a hard thing. But anyway, A- I think is outstanding. Maybe you could convince me of an A+ or an A. I don't know. But anyways, boys, let's move along. Let's rank the transfer impact. Horka, I believe you did this article. So you of the 8 guys, and yes, we will include the Purdue kicker in there from 1 to 8. How did you slot these guys?
Yeah, Jack, is that the way you want to do it? I'll say who's mine. Do you want to go from 8 down to 1 and just one by one real quick, or how do you want to do this?
Sure. And to be clear, is this our preseason top 25 where it's like, oh, this guy's really important because if he doesn't break out, Notre Dame's in trouble, or is this who we actually expect to produce most?
I think I did more of the latter.
Okay.
Just you have these 8 guys who at the end of the year we're going to be looking at and saying, oh, yeah, that guy did a lot for Notre Dame this year.
For the sake of time, you could just do the top 5.
Okay, sure. Let's do top 5.
All right, Go ahead, Ty.
Okay. If we're doing top 5, I have Tion Gray at number 5. And a lot of the reason that maybe he's not higher, because I think people might want to throw him in the top 3 immediately. It's this guy I think he had 13 tackles last year. I think he had 1 quarterback hurry on 99 pass rush snaps. If I'm remembering my Pro Football Focus numbers correctly, he's got to prove it. So, and I think he does take a step, but I don't know if he's, top 3 transfer guy in this class.
I will not put Gray in my top 5, but that is assuming, and we don't know this yet, but that is assuming Jason Anye does not or does get the extra year of eligibility. If he does not, then Gray's firmly in that top 5. I will go Spencer Porath, the kicker. I know you have him higher on your list that I pulled up. There are a few higher impact guys that I would rank ahead of him, but obviously a huge addition, 16 of 17 on field goals last year. That's something Notre Dame badly needed.
Yeah, and Notre Dame was 5 of 9. So when I do get to where I have Porath, because it's not right here, I'll talk a little bit more about him, but I have DJ McKinney at number 4. I just feel like something's up with Notre Dame and the fact that they took these 2 cornerbacks. I know Christian Gray and Leonard Moore are back, and you could theoretically just leave them as starters. You could have Dallas Golden start at nickel, but I think that McKinney works his way into the starting lineup somehow. And for that, I have him in the top half of these 8 guys.
I will also put McKinney at 4. I really like him in a vacuum. He's a good football player, really fits what Notre Dame's trying to do. You look at some of the man coverage percentage numbers, like the percent of coverage snaps played in man coverage over the past 2 seasons. Leonard Moore and Christian Gray are 1 and 2 both years, and DJ McKinney is somewhere in that bottom of the top 10, I believe, so 8th or something in both those years. And in 2024, number 3 was Jordan Clark. So Notre Dame has played man literally more than anyone else in the country over the past 2 years. DJ McKinney plays a lot of man coverage. He's a great fit.
Yeah, no wonder he was the first guy to commit of these 8, right? It was perfect for those reasons. This is where I have Spencer Porath, the kicker from Purdue. And again, Jack, you laid out what he was last year. I laid out what Notre Dame was last year. You mentioned how good BYU could be next year. Notre Dame's playing national runner-up Miami next year. Maybe one of the games comes down, and I like Notre Dame's odds in that scenario way more with Porath than what they had last year. And then if we do assume that, this Notre Dame season coming up is going to be a CFP type of season, Then you saw what happened in the CFP last time Notre Dame was there. It really needed Mitch Jeter to come up big. So I think Spencer Porath comes up really, really big for the Irish multiple times in the 2026 season.
It's a tough one because I know I'm leaving one of these really high ceiling guys out of the top of the top five. I'm gonna go Milan Graham here, and I know that there's a good chance he doesn't start with Jordan Faison already on the roster. But man, I love him as a player. The movement skills, the quick twitch ability at his size, the run after catch potential. I think Mike Denbrock can move him around a little bit. I think you see a lot of Quincy Porter, Milan Graham, Jaden Greathouse, Jordan Faison kind of in a top four, all playing at different spots. And I think Milan Graham is going to be a huge impact guy for them.
Earth to Horka. Hello.
Tyler, we still got you.
Tyler. Top two. Tyler, you muted, brother?
Tyler, you muted.
Horka's internet is a toaster right now.
All right,
Tyler,
so I have Horka's list pulled up, so I can go over his top two as well, because actually they're the same top two as mine. So we have Quincy Porter at number 2, because I think I might like Graham a little bit more than Porter as a player. When I talked to an Ohio State beat writer, that was kind of the vibe I got from him as well. But with Porter, he fills a more concrete need for Notre Dame, in that they needed that big-bodied boundary guy. I would expect if he's transferred here, he probably believes he's going to start. So even if he doesn't, even if he's coming off an injury, doesn't play a lot in spring practice, I like him a lot as that starter of the boundary spot. Unlike some of the other guys, obviously Malachi Fields, great player. Bo Collins, really good player. Quincy Porter has a lot more yards after catch potential, and he's a little bit more of a dynamic athlete. So I love his ceiling, love his instant impact. Have him at number 2. Number 1, we both have Francis Brewer, the defensive tackle from Pitt. I think that's kind of self-explanatory, instant starter, major position of need. I think he's still got a lot of room to grow from what it was at Pitt too. So love the ad.
Tyler, Mr. AOL, that is Jack just kind of writing it down for you. So let's move on to our final topic, returning to Notre Dame. So these are guys that didn't formally say, hey, we're coming back, or hey, we're going to the NFL. We just learned that they're coming back because sources told us they did not enter their name in the NFL draft. And that was Boubacar Traore, Adon Schuler, and Christian Gray. So guys who were fringe NFL draftees, especially Traore, think that he could have gone fairly high, and it would have been a shock if he left. So definitely good thing getting these 3 guys back. So Horka, if we have you, let's hear from you first.
Yeah, testing. Can you guys hear me? That was
Yep, got you.
And then you take me. I come back and then you take me off the thing, man. What's going on, Mike?
Trying to figure it out. There we go.
Yeah, no, I've been limping and laboring through this thing, and whatever. We got one segment left. Yeah, the guys that are coming back. I mean, one of them is a team captain in Adon Schuler. I mentioned earlier in this show how once Notre Dame figured out that Tay Johnson was best paired with Adon Schuler, then the secondary kind of took off, and Notre Dame's defense got way, way better as a whole because of that. So he makes the secondary better. He makes the locker room better because he's a captain. Boubacar Traore is your best defensive end, and I don't think that's particularly close. He makes your defensive line better, and again, your defense better as a whole. And then Christian Gray, I always thought that he would return. I still think that he's had a better career than Notre Dame fans give him credit for. Like when you look at the playmaking and some of the games that he's helped Notre Dame win, like he's a winning football player. And Jack made a really good comment behind the scenes to us in one of our group work chats with that. Like Notre Dame really likes the football player that Christian Gray is, and we have to remember that he was a little banged up last year and maybe wasn't playing at his best because of that. And like when he is at full capacity, he's going to be out there for Notre Dame, whether you guys like it or not. So I am very interested to see how that works with DJ McKinney coming into the fold, maybe even Jaden Sanders. We'll see where he slots in. But bottom line is Notre Dame welcomed Christian Gray back with open arms, and he's going to play one more year of football for the Fighting Irish.
Yeah, I'm very curious to see where Christian Gray ends up playing because one of those, I mean, you would have to assume one of those guys moves to nickel because Dallas Golden can't be the only player on the team that plays nickel because he is right now the only player on the team who's played nickel before. So obviously a very interesting spring practice storyline coming up here. But Christian Gray, no matter where he plays or how much he plays, he's gonna help. He's gonna help this team. They like you said, Tyler. They love him when he's healthy. He has the right mindset for the position. He has the right physical tools for the position. NFL people like him more than you'd think. In talking with some of the NFL draft experts that we know, and I'll get all that good stuff. Just kind of run down the line here. Schuler, obviously a huge return. Having that third-year starter at safety is really important because that's the guy who's going to make the checks and make sure everyone's lined up right on the back end. And having someone with Schuler's experience is just so huge for Notre Dame. Traore, though, number one, I love the decision. We lose Tyler again. Number one, I love the decision for him to come back. I think he was good in 2025, but he could be a lot better in 2026. Give him a year off that ACL recovery. Yes, I know he had 7.5 sacks, but he had a lot of sack luck. I'm guessing the pre-draft grades weren't as high as a lot of Notre Dame fans think they would be, but he really has the physical tools to be like a first-round ceiling guy if next year he really puts it together and becomes a consistent force off the edge. So love the decision for him to come back. As far as what it does for Notre Dame, we do like the preseason top 25 most important players that I referenced earlier. Number one is TJ Carr. Number two is Leonard Moore. Number three, I'm pretty sure, is Boubacar Traore, and I think he's closer to two than four. As far as players Notre Dame can least afford to lose for next year, given the relative to other positions on the roster, thinness of that defensive end room. Not that the freshman or Logan Thomas or Dom Hulak can't step up, but it's the depth of that position. I think is a little less than even like defensive tackle now. Notre Dame is 2 or 3 deep at both those spots, but Traore is just going to be such a huge player for this team next year. Notre Dame is really happy to have him back.
Absolutely. People in the chat are talking about Gray to nickel. I do think that's what Notre Dame is going to end up doing, that Christian Gray will play the nickel. So if that's the case, you have Gray there with Dallas Golden backing him up. I think you like that. And then let's say DJ McKinney at one corner spot, Leonard Moore at the other, with some quality players behind those guys, and Mark Zachary and Jaden Sanders from Michigan, and I'm sure there's a couple others that aren't coming to the top of my head. Like, would you like that corner nickel room?
Yeah, I'm curious to see what Gray looks like there because I've never thought of him as someone who's like, oh yeah, that guy is absolutely a nickel down the line in the future. If anything, I think he's a better fit for boundary than field with his length. So if that is what they try, I'm sure it's certainly something they'll look into. Curious to see how it works out, but I think that would be a good way to get your 3 best cornerbacks on the field because I think Notre Dame's 3 best cornerbacks, when you include the nickel spot, are Leonard Moore, DJ McKinney, Christian Gray. Maybe you flip-flop McKinney and Gray in that order. I do think both McKinney and Gray can be NFL prospects, so you want to have them both on the field as much as possible.
It would be interesting if like you go away from the boundary field thing with Moore and McKinney and you just say we're shadowing, because with how much man defense Notre Dame plays, you just have a guy and that's your guy. Like Leonard Moore, you're taking away the best receiver on the other team no matter where he is. Like that would be kind of an interesting thing because like you said, they both can, like I think they could play either, like field or boundary. So
yeah, I mean we saw Leonard Moore play in the slot last year against USC, and like I said, like when Notre Dame plays, poor Tyler, I feel his pain. When Notre Dame plays Miami, you would think Leonard Moore is going to do a ton of shadowing on Malachi Toney, so it's helpful to have 2 other guys who can play outside, great in the slot, even McKinney in the slot a little bit. It's interesting that Notre Dame has gone with this approach because, like, in the past, they've gone to the transfer portal like, oh, you're obviously the nickel. You played slot every snap at your last school. This year, it's like, let's just get a bunch of good cornerbacks and figure it out from there. So interesting change in approach that I don't like or dislike it. It's just an observation.
Yeah. I mean, definitely different change of approach in a lot of different ways for Notre Dame in the portal from years past. We could spend a whole segment on that. I'm sure we kind of have, from the getting undergrads to kind of letting things play out. Like before, it's just like Notre Dame, you didn't hear about like a Jaden Harrison or a Ty Washington or a Devonta Smith. When some of these guys committed to Notre Dame, you didn't hear about it before they committed. It just happened. Whereas the 2 weeks from January 2nd to the 16th were like mini high school recruitments where it was like you kind of knew about it and there was visits taken, there's reporting. Before it's just like it's done. Like Riley Leonard before he entered the portal was probably already coming to Notre Dame, so it was very interesting. And to also like I like what Notre Dame's done a lot of these positions where it's like you kind of have that big target guy come in, and then there's a second one who's maybe a little bit more of a budget, long-term projection guy. Like you think about the interior defense line and corner. Receiver, it's not the case because they just got two freakazoids. But then, yeah, you did get more undergrads. You're able to work that through mission. So there's a lot of different things that were interesting about Notre Dame's portal recruiting. And we'll see what it is next year with a different schedule. Right. I think the NCAA is working that, Jack.
Maybe I think the NCAA is just trying to play whack-a-mole with all these issues right now. Like at the coaches meeting, it was reported that all they talked about is eligibility, like 5 for 5 to play 5, all that good stuff. They didn't actually talk about the calendar. Yeah. So who knows? There is precedent for fixing it though, because obviously college basketball doesn't have the academic calendar to deal with like college football does.
Right.
But college basketball transfer portal is going to start the day after the national championship in men's and women, so they fix the problem, and one would hope that college football does too, because like this was a conversation I had on our message board earlier today. How much of the air was taken out of what on the field was an amazing playoff by having it run concurrently with the transfer portal?
Yeah,
like it just wasn't the hype around it wasn't what it should have been.
All right, folks, please do hit the thumbs up on this video. Subscribe to the channel for more content. Next live show tomorrow, 8 p.m. Eastern time. But also tonight at 7, Tyler James and Eric Hansen will be live. And you can find the link to their YouTube channel in the description of this video. They had a YouTube channel that they kept when they joined Blue and Gold. So they still do a show every week. Football Never Sleeps. You can watch that. Eric and I will be live tomorrow at 8. Speaking of Eric, it is funny that the most senior guy on our staff has the least technical issues, but our two young and handsome beat writers, Soble and Horka, seem to go through it sometimes. How about that? Jack's internet has been good lately, though. So how about that? Jack is knocking on wood, or there is someone at his door, and
knocking on wood.
All right, folks, again, hit the thumbs up. Great show if you're just tuning in. Rewind, watching the beginning. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll catch you guys next time.